Hello everyone, welcome back to the Mentoring Diaries. I am Dr. Tuba Ansari, and today's conversation we're exploring mentoring through a lens we don't talk about enough: design. When people hear design, they often think about aesthetic, creativity, or creating something new. But what I have found fascinating is that great designers do something much deeper. They observe, they ask different questions, they make sense of complexity, and they stay curious long enough to discover possibilities that others may not immediately see. And in many ways, mentoring feels very similar. Because good mentoring isn't about giving people the answer. It's about helping people think differently, helping them develop judgment, helping them navigate ambiguity, and that's exactly what we're exploring today. I'm really delighted to welcome Preeti Goyal with us. Preeti, it's wonderful to have you with us. Before we begin, I would love for you to introduce yourself, especially through the lens of your mentoring journey and how design has influenced the way you guide others.
Well, I'm Preeti Vyas. Head a I founded and, I run a company called Vyas Genetic Creative, which is a brand design and communication company. It's been around for 30 years. And I guess that's in short, what I do. But what I also do, other than that, is I have been on the board of advisory councils of some education institutions. I also try to be part of certain kind of philanthropy, and mentoring, therefore, is something which is very important to me. Although it might be not a traditional kind of mentoring, but in terms in the creative field, I guess this would be to mentor. But that's also what I do. I also do a lot of other sort of, spiritual literature studies and stuff like that. And I sit on boards of companies. I'm just in sort of random order. And I also paint. So I just thought that I'll just throw it out there that I do various things. And of course, everything that eventually becomes, which is creative, is something which somehow gets me excited. So whether it's conceptual, whether it is actually doing something like a visualization of something, all of that. So we've been around for 30 years. We've been very fortunate to work with some exceptional clients. I've been very fortunate personally to have some amazing team members as well. Through the journey, I've seen like hundreds and hundreds of people come through and go, and many of them are doing wonderful stuff outside now on their own. So it's been a very rewarding journey, I'm an entrepreneur, which means that I have had to also wear that hat apart from being a creative person. And I had to learn the hard way because, no design institute actually teaches you to be an entrepreneur. To look at finances and stuff like that, but eventually I had to do that. And one of the things that you really need to pack a lot on your bag in this journey is resilience, endurance. Because you see a lot of ups and downs, and eventually you're the only one holding the can. So you're responsible for people, responsible for clients, responsible for work. So all of that. So this is, in a nutshell, me, my life, all these years.
That's great. That's wonderful to know about the kind of background that you come from. And I can actually sense it the way that when you're talking, the love that you have for and the passion that you actually hold for your career, like creativity, art, painting, everything that you were talking about. I could actually feel it. So that's a very great thing because a lot of people, they do things that they actually do not like it. So it's very important. I mean, to love what you do because that's where you actually see success coming in.
Yes. Very important to love what you do. Very important.
So, Preeti, how has your background in design shaped the way you mentor others?
So I have a very interesting education. So National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad is not like typical design schools. So in the day when when I went in to NID, when I was sort of, I was lucky enough to get in because those days it took only about 30 students every year. And, it was a very open way of education. First of all, we had like these studios where open studios where people of different years also sat together. We called our teachers by their first names. So, it was not so terribly hierarchical. We treated each other as colleagues. And most importantly, we taught not necessarily about making pretty things. Design was not necessarily about making good-looking stuff. Uh, you were first taught to be a change maker, that as a designer, you have a responsibility to improve people's lives through whatever. Okay, there are many disciplines which I was exposed to, but I chose visual communication, like product design, textile design, and so on. And I chose visual communication as my path. So that I think set the pace for my journey. So today we talk about strategy-led design, but we were taught to be strategy-led. We were taught to look at the world, look at the best practices everywhere, not just in India. We were also taught to look deep into India, to our roots, understand where we came from, our ethnicity, our craft, our culture. So all of that. So you can imagine how much of that, that sort of that education was of value to create a kind of a mental culture, uh, within which you're operating. So it was not a limited vision; it was a very vast vision. In fact, I'd say it was maybe too vast because you felt like you belonged to the universe. But I learned to really cross my T's and dot my I's when I became an intern with a very good creative director called Mohammed Khan. And I think he's my creative guru, I call him, outside of NID. So I think the combination is really the reason why I am I am what I am. So that's my education part, to you. So next on, I leave. I mean, whatever you think is the next question, we'll go with that.
So, I think one of the most beautiful thing about design is that it teaches people to stay open, before becoming certain. Like the way you mentioned that it's more about reflecting back to your culture, and it's like an
Yeah.
open thing, not like you're restricting yourself, to one of the thing and like this is what you're supposed to do, not like directing someone,
Yes.
but
Yes.
maybe explore, reflect, and that's when you come with your creativity. And how you also mentioned about your creative guru,
Yeah.
so I think, I mean, obviously, because that is again nothing but a kind of mentoring that we believe in. So, and that makes me also wonder about something, and that's, do designer mentor differently, from professionals in other discipline that we see?
I can't honestly tell you if we do it differently, but I can't imagine how different it would be. I don't think any profession, I mean, we are professionals. We just professionals of a certain category. And whilst we say design, it's not airy-fairy. I mean, we're very structured in the way we work, we think, we deliver. So I think that, you know, if you look at mentoring as an idea, why we say mentoring and not teaching is because it requires a certain nature of exposure of the mentee towards the mentor. Okay, it's the attitude that each one brings to the table. So if my attitude is to teach, but I don't overtly teach. Nor did Muhammad Khan say, okay, fine, Preeti, I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you that. Never. It is learning by osmosis, by and large. Okay, you really need to work very closely with your mentor. You need to observe because there's so much going on which is impossible. They're not going to teach you. They're running a company, they're running their deadlines, but it is the mentee who must come with a certain attitude to learn, a certain openness and asking certain questions. I think for the mentor, we have to lead with empathy. We have to understand that this person who's coming has come on board. Very often, they're freshers who, although they might have been to the best design school in India or abroad, they really cannot, put pen to paper, so to speak. Okay, they don't hit the ground running. They have to be taught. They have to be retaught sometimes. And what do they have to be taught? Even basics. Their software they're not aware of. They're not aware of basic concepts of design, of communication, and so on. So we have to do a lot of teaching to these kids. So it requires a lot of patience from our side. What would be required from the mentee's side is genuinely take the opportunity to absorb as much as you can. I often tell kids when they are in college that when you graduate, the placement of departments will try to put you into all kinds of organizations, but really don't go to the highest paid one. Go to the place where you feel there is a very good person there leading it. They're very good people, because that's where you will learn. Because honestly, in the colleges that you are right now, it's just giving a very base level of education. But it is these people who will really truly hone you and sharpen you and dimensionalize you so that you're ready for the world. So that's my advice to mentees. Very often what happens is that a lot of these kids, especially if you have a like you come from a certain college, you are picked up by a corporate entity. The corporate entity is more impressed by, okay, let's say it's a student from NIT has such a great brand name. They get the kid on board. The kid needs still to have much more exposure with her senior designer, but he or she is not getting that. They put in a role in a corporate structure. It could be a structure where they're like, washing machines or whatever, where you go in as a designer. But you are missing out on the opportunity of learning more. You enter into that job already delivering design solutions, okay, and no one is there to teach you anymore. So your learning has stopped there, okay. Eventually, you will find that your colleagues who've left and perhaps gone and worked with some organizations, some places where there are good people who are teaching them, you'll be left behind. You'll make a lot of money because corporates pay a fair amount, but you will not be able to stick to the career graph that you would want for yourself. So my advice is always don't look at money in the initial years. Go for a place where you think you'll be met. When work is respected, people are respected. Go to them, beg them to give you time. Believe me, all good designers will give time if you show persistence, if you show sincerity. And I spend time. I spend a lot of time you know, with freshers because I get very excited when I
I really
meet
second that
new.
because it's very important. A lot of times, even when I deal with students, I tell them same thing. I mean, irrespective if, whether they come from designing background, they come from finance background, any kind of background, it's very important when you're building your career in the initial
Huh.
start. It's important to, work in a place where you're mentored properly for your career, you're guided properly and you're taught the kind of quality of work rather than just joining a big brand name and, you're like just sitting
Yes.
there and just directed for like a
Yeah.
very small kind of a work. Because that's when
You and
maybe you're growing financially, but also at the same time, you're not able to grow in your career, because the kind of project that you'll be handling, maybe though a firm could be a smaller one, but if you're guided well, I mean, the kind of exposure that you'll get over there will be much more higher for and developing for your career.
Yeah. In fact, smaller companies give you more opportunities because they're flatter structures. Large companies, you get buried where, there's a giant heap of hierarchy, you get buried. How much exposure you will get, God alone knows.
Definitely. So one thing, Preeti, I've always noticed that designers seem incredibly comfortable with, ambiguity. So working with incomplete information, experimenting, adjusting, and honestly, that's something many professionals struggle with. So how can mentors help mentees become more comfortable with uncertainty like that?
Uh, well, to be honest, okay, so there is ambiguity and there isn't. I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity coming often from the client side. So one of the things that we teach teach everybody, mind you, it's a constant learning. We are not just mentoring freshers, you're also mentoring people at all levels, even at a senior level. I mentor. So the trick is in learning how to listen, learning how to understand the brief, learning to challenge when you need to, learning to get clarity through understanding the domain, through understanding the environment within which that brand or the client is operating. If you get into that level of understanding, a lot of the ambiguity falls away. It becomes easier to speak to our clients when we say that, fine, you said A, B, C, D. However, this is what the market tells us, and this is what we think you should be because somebody else is already being exactly what you want to be. They see the logic in that. Okay, so when you get that kind of clarity, when you start with that kind of exercise of gaining clarity, it helps the client. It helps the internal teams because what you're doing is narrowing down your choices and you're creating a greater level of focus. Okay, rather than ambiguity comes from lack of focus. So, that's really when things start frittering away, and then become herding it back into a place of sense and sensibility is hard work, is harder work. So we teach all of this, to people.
And I'm sure many mentees, come looking for answers. And I imagine that that can be tempting as a mentor too. So how do mentors balance giving guidance while still encouraging independent thinking?
So, when this podcast was, when it got scheduled, I just, asked my team members, tell me, how do I mentor? Because I'm not terribly aware of how I do it, right? So I got a variety of answers from different people from different backgrounds. Uh, One of them was that, the ability to spot a certain kind of talent which is unique to each person and helping them see it and helping them grow it. Apparently that's what I do, but I think it's a good thing to have as a mentor, as part of your file, because a lot of people don't know sometimes their own capabilities and capacity, because they come from linear backgrounds or linear expectations. You come from a college which says you be a designer, and therefore what? You will not be anything else. I'm a designer, but today I'm a brand strategist also. I'm a writer also. I do a lot of things. So it took me time to open up those for myself. But now I also encourage others when I see it in somebody else. I encourage that as well. I've been told that I help in, you know, creating a valuable insight. Like may have a lot of data, okay, but having a lot of data is just clutter until and unless you funnel it down to a crucial insight. So that is important. So the ability to take a lot of data and equipping yourself with a certain kind of a point of view, which is a vantage point you create, which is again not a narrow vantage point. So you need to raise above what you think is a typical boundary which people will have. But if you raise yourself above the boundary, you will have a much bigger vision. They say, I don't think I need a boundary here. I think we need a boundary there, or we don't need a boundary at all. So that is where insights come from, in my opinion, is where you switch off from the linearity of the expectations from your clients and from the role that you have. And then you see it from a very different perspective without barriers. That's really when you start creating valuable insights which people can own and take those insights and become successful. Okay, so that's something that is important. I think it's important, and I'm glad that people,
Definitely. I mean, something that you've
recognize.
mentioned, Preeti, so I'll just, because I know that you've been mentoring people and, different domains. And something that you mentioned before, like, the first point that I can actually spot the skills with what they're good at. And most important, practice and skill building for a mentor and coach. And that's spotting the blind spot.
Yeah.
So you're very much on the track as a professional mentor.
I am a professional mentor. What do you think? How do you think I
No,
survived
no, like
30
a
years?
proper certified one, that the one they're there in the market. People go for this training, like they actually go for this training to learn and build those skills. Like, how can they actually work on locating those, spotting those blind spots for people. But I think you have those already inbuilt in you. So it's like a professional mentor that you already have in you.
I think so. I have to own it. The other thing I was told is that I'm a stickler for craft. Okay, it's very important that you don't lose sight of details, because a fantastic idea can completely die if you've not executed it well. Okay, so it's important to maintain standards. It is important to know what you are going to do and what you're not going to do, who you're going to work with. I mean, what kind of clients you will work with, and should be walking away from what you think is not right. So, understanding what kind of a designer you want to be is also part of mentorship, that you don't want to be everything to everyone. Another part of mentorship is you have to really learn to respect yourself and believe in yourself. You will respect yourself if you have something to offer, which means first of all, you must acquire a lot of skills, learn a lot, and thereafter you must feel proud of what you do. Obviously, you're on a learning curve. You should never stop being on a learning curve, but you must operate off singular presence. You must operate from a place of, I am willing to learn, but I will do it on these terms. Because I find a lot of people just sticking through all kinds of situations, especially in client relationships and all of that, which is, so I stand up for my team, protect them from such, in case something has come up, which typically is rare, but if it all it has, then I will stand up for my.
That's a very good
Uh,
leadership skill. Again.
Thank you. The other thing which I have, so craft is important, but the what I was told by my team was that I really push them to not just be a pretty fire, but an ideas person. You need to come from a place of a big idea, which gets translated into an expression. Why ideas? Because in our world of creativity, it is really embracing the big idea, the big vision, and finding that creative um, sweet spot, which is a bit differentiated, not bit, which is differentiated, which is ownable by clients, and that defines then, and that informs the creative expression. So whenever people just do design by, okay, let's just make this thing look good, never works. It has to come from a place of what is the, after having understood the client and understanding the brief, what is the big idea that I can crack, which is going to really make my idea stand apart? My client should feel that, wow, this is one thing which is so differentiated from my competition that it's a win for them, and therefore it's a win for us. So pushing people to think big, to think 360 degrees. Okay, I'm also encouraging even creative people, think like you think like a business person. You are now talking, when you are dealing with a client, clients are business people. They come to you for a certain kind of problem solving for their brand and some service communication or whatever it is. For them, essentially, it's the P&L. Okay, so you need to come from, and you will become a better designer if you understand the world they live in. When I first got into this role, I did not have a mentor. I just taught myself. I subscribed to every business publication because I must understand the world my clients live in, and I expose myself to all of that literature and things like that to understand. Today, when I'm sitting on boards, I'm looking at a lot of financial results and things. My understanding is also getting much more enhanced, over there. So I think that it's for creative people not just to live in la la land and understand that what they're really doing has ramifications, must bear results, and that will only help you become more creative. You'll become more focused in your ideas. So that's what my team learns, and that's what a lot of people who worked with me have gone out and become entrepreneurs. They run the studios, so that feel good as well.
And that's such a beautiful way, to think about growth, which also makes me curious. So in your experience, what role does curiosity play in effective mentoring?
Curiosity is at the heart of everything. I mean, I encourage people to not just about their craft. I encourage people to become, aware of geopolitical issues, social, cultural issues. Understand that. Have a life outside a profession, understand relationships, human interactions. All of these things are very, very important to become a richer contributor and a better designer.
It's nice. And, sometimes perhaps a lot of time, people assume this curiosity is a personality thing. But I believe that, more than personality is a practice that we all need to do and we all need to be open to, because as you
Absolutely.
mentioned,
Yes, yes, yes. Because you will have, young kids will have a limited curiosity. Okay, so they are curious about their world, the immediate world, what the friends are doing, and so on. But when you become a professional, you to really make sure that you are curious about a lot of other things which are going to affect your work. I mean, I remember when early days when what affected a lot of my work was some of I love art. I have a lot of favorite artists, So I found that exposure, some of that crept into my work, and made my work differentiated and so it's very important that you're connected with all sorts of things, creative wise and otherwise, strategy wise, marketing wise, all of those things. So our teams are strategy, planning, uh, client management, creativity, designers, writers, and so on. So all of these people I encourage to go get a life, do more than just 9 to 5.
It's more like go be curious outside.
Go be curious, but go be curious and enjoy it, I mean, don't do it like an exercise. I mean, if you truly are open to things, you start understanding more, you enjoy things more, worldview opens up, and you discover more about your own self.
So, you've worked across business, branding, governance, and boardrooms. How has your mentoring approach evolved as your own career evolved?
My mentoring, I think I would say that as I said, I don't say, okay, now I'm a mentor. But I do feel that if I have been on a journey, and lot of my journey, apart from the time when I was working with Mohammed Khan and some other later on with in an agency with some very, very creative colleagues, has essentially been of self-learning. So when I see my team members, I'm recalled of my own journey, and I feel I must encourage them, and I must impart whatever I've learned to them so that they can open up their minds as well. So I think over a period of time, perhaps I've become more patient. Over a period of time, I have also been able to. It takes me actually when I'm looking at a portfolio of work, it doesn't take me more than 30 seconds to know whether this person is going to has something or not. So you just I guess you live long enough and work long enough, so you just build that into your intuitive intelligence. So that's how I think I have evolved. And when there are people, I give a lot of opportunities for them to learn. So I'm patient, but I am demanding. I'm not patient to the point of excusing their own shortcomings, because then what's the point? It doesn't serve the company, and it doesn't serve them, their own growth. I think that when kids come with ambition and hunger, they are the ones who learn the fastest because they're hungry for themselves. And those are a delight to work with. By the way, whilst I'm saying I teach them, I also learn from them. So they
That's
bring
very important.
perspectives. Huh?
I was going to have my next question on something very similar.
So they come with fresh perspectives. They come with certain kind of exposure to their age group, and which has its own exposures, which has its own their own sort of relationships and all of that. And that's something new for me to learn. So it's a symbiotic thing, of course.
Can you share an experience where helping someone think differently created a breakthrough that advice alone couldn't achieve?
God, I think there's so many, but I can't think of one right now. So, as I say, learn to listen between the lines, okay? And we have a client who's based in a certain city, and they had a project which they were very keen to have a certain kind of project for a certain kind of target audience. But what they had briefed was like a linear brief. It didn't touch upon the subtleties of what their demands were. My team, because I wasn't terribly involved in the initial stages, my team had already gone a long way in taking what they had said as verbatim a brief, truth as a brief, and they had already gone down a certain road. And then when I looked at it, I said, this is not what they should be doing, because their target audience, which they have identified, does not think like this. But if you want to sharply target them, you have to think in a certain other way. And we did that, and it was a super success. So just that one intervention can take you from average to spectacular. And otherwise there would have been a lot of back and forth. Everything came from that one understanding. So I teach people how listen between the lines. Sometimes the brief is not what the client has sent you on the mail, but it is really something that you have listened to. Put yourself in the shoes of those people. So when you do that, and they see it that it's working. So next time around, they do the same thing. They try to do the same thing as well. So this is what I meant by strategic insights. You may have a lot of data, but data needs to be processed with a different lens. These are things which are very important for people to learn in their career journey.
That's a very beautiful approach, that you have. And if finally, if mentors could help people develop just one capability and something that would serve them throughout life and work, what would it be?
One capability in the mentee
Yeah,
level.
yeah, something that would help them serve throughout life and work.
Number one, be true to yourself. So if there's a one thing, I can't think of any one thing, but I can tell you that they must feel the truth within themselves when they do something. They really have to, whatever they're doing, they have to approach from from a strategic perspective. They deliver from the perspective of superlative craft. If you do that, if you are true to yourself, honest to yourself, which means you must work very sincerely. You can't, you're the last person you can fool, so you must do that. You must learn to understand better, because that's where insights come from. And you must not give up till your craft, you've achieved the level of perfection that you should be achieving as best as you can. When I say as best as you can, it's not a lazy statement to make, it's a karma yogi statement to make. So if you have these things, there's no way you can lose. There's no way.
That's great. This has been a very thoughtful conversation, Preeti. Let's move to a quick fireside round. Whatever comes to your mind first. One quality mentors and designers have in common. One question that unlocks better thinking in a mentee.
Look beyond.
One
Look
thing,
beyond
one thing mentors should help people see, not tell.
You make them see through how others have done. References show how the world is has done things like this.
One trait that signals a mentee is ready for growth.
The first breakthrough after they've listened to you, and you know that this breakthrough is coming from a place of now understanding. That's when you know that this kid is going to, is on a good path.
One mistake mentors make when trying to help too quickly.
Impatience.
One role creativity plays in personal or professional growth.
Joy. Joy of creativity.
One capability every future-ready professional should develop.
Am I at the forefront of what this profession demands? Are you cutting edge? Are you making sure that you're at the cutting edge of everything? Today, for example, AI. Are you trying to do that? I'm pushing so hard for everybody to do it. And I'm in a different age group, but I'm the one pushing. So I'm just saying that people should think of themselves as, am I at the cutting edge of things which are demanded in this profession? Am I doing the best that I can to be there?
And one word that defines great mentoring.
Intelligence. It's like, we sort of intelligence, empathetic intelligence, I would say.
That's great. And thank you, Preeti, for bringing, not just your experience, but honestly, your honesty and your creativity into this conversation. Okay. One thing mentoring continues to remind me is this. Growth doesn't always happen in answers. Sometimes growth happens through better questions. Design teaches us to stay curious. Mentoring teaches us to stay open. And together, they help build not just career, but ways of thinking that last. Today's conversation gave you something to think about. Take a moment with it. Change often starts quietly with a single insight. At IMC, we are committed to creating a better world through the power of mentoring, one conversation, one connection at a time. Till we meet again, take care of yourself and each other.